Before we jump into today's podcast, we wanted to tell you about a fundraising event that RocketPWR are taking part in. On October 17th in London, RocketPWR take on Battle Cancer. RocketPWR Apparel has up to 3 teams entering this year's event. Battle Cancer is a fundraising campaign that brings the world together through fitness to speed up the progress in life-saving cancer research. Cancer is the second leading cause to death globally. It accounts for 1 in 6 deaths around the world. Each member of the RocketPWR team has been affected by cancer in some way, shape or form. We are asking you to help us reach our desired goal by donating what you can. Our goal is £3,500. That seems a lot, but let me put that into perspective for you. If each of our Instagram followers donate £1 as of recording this, we can raise £3,525, which is a significant amount that will go a long way to supporting the cause. The total amount raised will be split between each athlete's chosen cancer charities. On behalf of RocketPWR Apparel, thank you in advance. Firstly, let us start by saying hello and welcome on to the RocketPWR podcast. Secondly, you're a hard lady to tie down. We've wanted to get you on the podcast for some time now, but everything has settled down slightly for you now, and here you are. Are you keeping well?
Yes, I am. I finished uni last week, so just enjoying a bit more freedom so I can do fun stuff.
And I'm pretty certain that's the reason why it's taken you so long to come onto the podcast, is because of all that work.
Well, I was obviously working very hard, but if you go back to some of the other podcasts, Craig, you said that you wouldn't allow Scottish people on the podcast. Isn't that right?
I can't remember that. Let's just skip over that part.
Yeah.
And if you've noticed, I've not got my translator here, and I'm doing just fine understanding you.
It's because I'm using my posh coaching voice, just to make sure that you can understand.
Well, I very much appreciate it.
You are welcome.
We normally start the podcast with a little bit of fun, but we shall get to that shortly. The only reason people are listening to this podcast is to find out when you're coming out of retirement from competing in functional fitness. Do you have an answer to that?
Well, during lockdown, as part of, my other half is a very keen CrossFitter. I've basically been bullied into doing 3 WODs a week anyway. And my coaches bullied me into doing absolutely horrendous EMOMs. So I've kind of fallen back into it, whether I like it or not. And I believe there's some very good competitions coming up that it would be really good to help out with.
So all your conditioning is going to come into play, because what we can tell the listeners is that you'll be competing on the RocketPWR team at Battle Cancer in your hometown of London, or what is now your hometown. You'll be heading out onto the competition floor with 3 other RocketPWR athletes, Steph, Lauren and Sean, so quite the female dominant team. Yourself and Steph are the OG RocketPWR athletes and get on really well. Are you excited to be competing alongside Steph on the dance floor?
Oh, I actually can't wait. I think one of the saddest parts of lockdown was that we couldn't. Me and Steph don't actually get to see each other very often, so it's always like this long lost reunion that we get to see each other. It's really good. So I can't wait to see her.
It was going to be late April, I think 25th or 26th, that we had put in the diary for everyone to come together. Steph and I have been recently discussing the RocketPWR get together and possibly just doing it on the field, little bit of fitness and a picnic. So that is in the works, possibly, depending on when they lift the bans of like the gyms and so on and so forth.
Can't wait. Hopefully soon.
Let's jump into your podium picks. You know how the game works. You've listened to all the podcasts. But for the people listening who may not know, I'm going to give Albie a subject or a category, and she will rank her choices if they were stepping onto a podium. So a third, second, first, and a spirit of the competition. Notice I didn't say Spirit of the Games. We've changed everything. Your category is going to be actresses to play you in a biopic. So I will give you a couple of moments to digest your thoughts and come up with 4 actresses that you're going to choose. These can be obviously UK, American, any actresses that you want.
Do they have to look like me?
They do not. So I say actresses, you could have actors. So if you want The Rock is your 3rd place pick, by all means have The Rock. I think majority of the nation would.
I don't know if I'd pick The Rock, purely because I do have quite a lot of hair, so I'm not sure The Rock would fit.
What about
Okay.
Jack Black? He's got brown long hair.
I'm just not that funny, so I want to take that away from him.
So all the actresses that you're going to pick, or actors, you're saying that they're not funny?
I'm saying that Jack Black is so much funnier than I am that it would do him a disservice to have to play me.
Well saved.
That sounds very good save.
Very good save.
I'm sweating from all the stress, Craig.
In 3rd place, we are going to pick. Normally, I play along with the game, but I didn't. We only decided that we were going to do actresses in biopics last night, and as we were messaging, I did go onto Google to type in actresses, because I think I could only think of about 7 to 8. There are so many actresses in the world.
Yeah, it's quite a big industry.
It's huge.
It's very big.
Who would have thunk it, eh?
Exactly. So number 3, I'm going to go for Mila Kunis. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah? Why are you picking her? Why in number 3?
I don't know, I just think she's really cool.
We're just going for a cool chick in number 3?
Yeah, she's just cool. Number 2, we're going to go for Emma Watson, because everybody likes Emma Watson.
Emma Watson, is that Hermione Granger?
Yeah, I managed to get a Harry Potter reference in. You're welcome.
For all the Harry Potter fans.
For all the big fans out there, like myself. And then is it number 1?
We can jump onto number 1. But Emma Watson has been in more films than Harry Potter, just to make people aware if they didn't know.
And she's generally just great. Emma Watson is great.
So, moving on to number 1, and then we go on to Spirit of the Competition.
Okay. Number 1 is going to be Rachel McAdams. Big fan of Rachel McAdams when she's in her brunette phase.
A fantastic choice.
She's great. She's also great.
A lot of people forget about Rachel McAdams as well. Just, you talk about actresses, and I think she just flies under the radar, even though a lot of her work is actually incredible.
Well, she's the main actress in The Notebook.
She is.
And whether people like it or not, everybody's heard of The Notebook.
But I don't feel people remember The Notebook because of her. They remember it because of him.
Nah.
No?
All about Rachel McAdams. Nah.
As we can tell. And Spirit of the Competition. So this can be someone, they don't have to be a big time actor. You can just like them. No one else has to like them. This is where Jack Black can come into play if you want him to.
And we're going to go with Maggie Smith. She can play me when I'm older.
Who was that? Sorry, the line broke up. Nice.
Oh,
and
Maggie Smith. She's great as Professor McGonagall in Harry Potter, Greg. She's all round just top woman.
She was one of the main leads in Downton Abbey, wasn't she?
Yeah. She's been in lots of quality things, and she's going to play me when I'm older.
Or one of the 4. When you're older, what age would you like your biopic to be made?
Well, with a biopic, it's not your whole life, so you get to choose at different stages. Maybe I could have all 4 of them.
Well, you don't You don't have to have one. You could have like your early years, and then when you were into functional fitness, you could have Mila Kunis as your functional fitness chick, and then boom, weightlifter Rachel McAdams shows up on screen.
Very true.
And
And then
then
I retire. And then
to
Maggie Smith.
yeah, to be continued, and then Maggie Smith comes on screen.
Yeah. I bet she's strong.
I bet there's nothing she can't do. I bet
That,
her and Meryl
yeah.
Streep are sat on their thrones together.
Pretty much. I think so.
Many people listening to this podcast will probably follow you on social media and they get to see what you do on a daily basis within your training sessions. But how have you actually been coping without being at a gym? As we said in the beginning, you've done a lot more conditioning than what you would have because you've been working out with your partner Ed. But physically and mentally also, like how has it been draining on you as a weightlifter?
It's definitely been a challenge. So for anyone that doesn't follow me on social media, I basically have a little spot behind the sofa on our 11-story flat, and it's really small, it's really cramped, and it's really hot. I'm like, it's not a great spot really. I'm grateful that I decided to keep training through lockdown for sure, more just out of keeping the habits going. But as for feeling like a weightlifter, having to train in your living room comes with like huge amounts of risk anyway, because you obviously can't move as fast, you won't be able to push the weights up as much, so it's really difficult to have an idea of whether you're progressing or not. So for me, it's been more, I feel like I've stood still for the last few months. As much as I've done a lot of training, I've done a lot of accessory work, because I'm not going out and competing, or I'm not seeing my coach, or I'm not getting that kind of environment where you get pushed. I just feel like I've stood still, which is better than going backwards, but it's difficult when you're used to pushing forward, having to kind of stop and just accept you can only do as much as you can with what you have.
What sort of percentages have you been working at in the flat compared to what you would be working out at a gym? Or is it just you're using this time to now focus on technique over anything else just because you are being cautious because of the space that you're in?
I've been probably forced into doing a bit more technical work. My coach has been really good at putting in lots of pause work, slow eccentrics, stuff that you can't go heavy on even if you wanted to because it's so difficult, or it's like complexes of like 6 to 10 reps where you definitely don't want to go heavy anyway. But in terms of percentages, I will be lucky to get towards maybe 70% inside on like your classic snatch, clean and jerk. I'm not able to split jerk in the flat at all because it makes too much noise. Generally can't use any footwork on snatches or cleans because it makes too much noise. But I am able to do things like deadlifts, and we got some squat racks as well, so I can still keep squatting. So I think my strength is probably okay, but going back into doing full lifts is always going to be a little bit patchy, just because I wouldn't have touched heavier weights for quite a while.
With being in your flat, you and Ed compete within two different fields of fitness. Do your neighbours know how good you both are in your fields of fitness? Two, have you had any complaints about how loud you are within the flat?
But this is kind of the odd thing about our flat, is we're on the 11th floor. We never hear our neighbours. We should have people on both sides of us, and I believe there should be people underneath us, but you can't hear anything. So we've actually been really, really lucky that as far as we're aware, we've not had any complaints, or we've not really bothered anybody. I think the loudest thing in our flat right now is an echo bike, which is meant to be the quietest of all bikes, but it's loud. And all the pictures on the wall start rattling when you go pretty fast on it, just because of the wind coming off the fan. So I don't think our neighbours, hopefully, are being disturbed too much. We are trying to be as kind as we can, because we don't know how long this is going to last.
You said that you had been training with Ed doing conditioning, and that your coaches got you doing a bit more conditioning than you regularly would do if you were at Shapesmiths. How have you found that? Have you enjoyed it more than you thought you would?
I definitely still enjoy conditioning within reason. Um, when Ed made me run up and down the 11 flights of stairs in a weight vest, I wasn't particularly happy. Um, but I love exercise. That's really cringe, but I do just like movement. So any time that I do get to move is a benefit. Probably one of the main reasons I stepped back from functional fitness anyway was just time. I wanted to commit properly to weightlifting, and just because I was balancing like work and training and trying to get my degree all at the same time, there just wasn't enough hours in the day. And weightlifting just takes a lot of time.
Although you're seen or classed as a weightlifter, you still coach functional fitness slash CrossFit at Shapesmith, so you're still in and around it very much. Do you ever get pulled into a class out of peer pressure? Because I know that you've been pulled into a competition, I think, was it around Christmas time? And that was out of people wanting you to do it.
Occasionally I get called in. In terms of coaching, there's kind of a little bit of an ongoing joke that I will always like maintain my 3 rep demonstrations. Apart from a muscle up, I haven't done a muscle up in a really long time. Like, I tend to keep my 3 rep demonstrations. So if anyone wants a 4th rep, they've not got a chance. But in terms of my movement, I kind of kept it, and I'm always willing to jump in if you need somebody on a team. Like, that's never been a problem. I haven't been pulled into a class in a really long time. More just because of time. Any time that I'm free is usually spent training or studying. But I am pretty keen to go back to some classes. I think it's just a nice environment to be in, just around other people.
And again, going back, I know that you were a weightlifter, but when we did that first Rocket Power Day, and although you coach CrossFit, you don't have to be able to do all the moves necessarily, but you could just jump up on the bar, and you had some good looking toes to bar, and the other movements that we were doing, like handstand push-ups, you've got all the moves still in your bag if you did want to take part in a class.
Yeah, I did functional fitness for quite a number of years, I guess. I'm trying to think when I actually officially retired. or took a break. Can we say retired? Or when I took my break from fitness? I think it
We
was
can
20.
absolutely say
Probably
retired.
2019. It was only last year. I've definitely said retired. Because I did Castle Games individuals. I think it was 2 years ago. And that was kind of like my last fitness competition. But then I was training quite a lot. So I guess I was probably training maybe 10 times a week. But I was just fitting it round other things, which it was easier at the start. It got harder in the second and final year. So at one point, I could do muscle ups. I haven't tried in a long time. I guess it's all still there if I decide to commit to getting the capacity back. And I try my best with all the conditioning that I do with Ed or that Chris gives me, just to move well, because I don't have quite the same pressure of the intensity that I probably used to have. So I'm probably that person that moves well but doesn't get a high heart rate. So I think I have the movements, but maybe I'd need a bit more of a push to get out of breath these days.
Well, they say mechanics, intensity, then consistency. So you're doing the right things in the right order.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sticking with the old school methods there.
About training 10 times a week and that you had this, and this, which then moves on to your lifestyle balance. So you're a student, an athlete, a coach, you work. This sounds super simple when I say it like that. But when you break it down into a student, right, so you attend lectures, you study, you then write essays of thousands of words. Life as an athlete, you have to go to where you're training, warm up, do your lifts. You then got people that talk to you, so on and so forth, all the programming, to then coaching and everything that then comes with it. This is a lot to juggle. How do you deal with balancing your life and lifestyle of training, and how do you prioritize what comes first and second?
Um, to be honest, it's quite day dependent. Um, I write a lot of to-do lists. When it was like at its peak, when probably my second year of uni was probably the worst year in terms of balance because we were in the hospital 9 till 5, and then it was just I would be opening the gym sort of 5ish. Um, it was a lot of planning. I tend to like put my clothes out the night before. You have it like you set your food up for the next day because you're probably not going to have time to make those kind of decisions as you're going along. Most of it is just prep. Like you can do lots of things in a day if you need to. The hard part is sustaining it. Like filling your days is fine. I've managed to fill my days doing, quite frankly, not very much during lockdown, and it's been quite nice. Um, Probably for me, I sacrificed a lot of sleep to get things done. Um, and if I'm honest with myself, the quality of my university work was probably not as good as that could have been. Um, but it was good enough to get by.
Is it good
Um,
enough for you to get the job that you eventually want to get, or may you not putting in that work in your university time, may it come back and bite you slightly?
I mean, I've not had my degree result yet, so you might want to ask me that again in like a month's time. Um, I should have done enough in terms of getting my degree, getting the grades that I need. But for me, the sacrifice I would have had to make to go up like a degree class or to put in that extra level wasn't worth the sacrifices as an athlete or in my social life. So I probably have let uni take a bit of a back seat when I've been able to, but because other things have just meant more at that time. But when I've been on my university placements, so for anyone that doesn't know, I'm doing a physiotherapy degree. When I was on placement, you're effectively doing the job all day. Um, and I tried my first placement to work at the same time, like my normal hours. Um, I tried to do that the first time, pretty much did no training for 6 weeks because I just didn't have time. Was exhausted, completely not worth it. Um, and for each placement after that, I was almost a bit kinder to myself in what I did. So I would make the sacrifices in terms of, okay, you're not going to be able to train for like 2-3 hours a day. You've been standing in the hospital all day. Let do an hour, go home, don't worry about it. So I've probably gotten more mature and slightly kinder to myself than I was in the early years of uni, and I was just very very tired.
Going back to what you just said about having the 6 weeks off training due to what you were doing, how did that affect your mindset? Did you beat yourself up that you weren't training, and then was it hard to get back into training?
At that time, I was so tired that it didn't even cross my mind. Um, I think probably running on 3-4 hours sleep. And because I was coaching, it was quite physical. Like the job that I was doing, I would be coaching for about 2 hours and then I'd go to placement. And again, the placement I was on was quite physical. Um, so in terms of like, I think my fitness would probably be fine. You're going through all your ranges of motion every day. It's a physical job being a physio. Well, it can be. So in terms of training, I kind of accepted to myself, like, you've made your bed, now you need to lie in it. Like, you've made a commitment to work, you've got to stay, you've got to do the hours, you've got a commitment to uni, you've got to do it, you don't really have a choice. Worry about it later. It kind of got put in that future me problem box.
With sacrifices that you've made, obviously you notice them completely, but this may mean not seeing a friend for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. How did people from the outside looking in see your sacrifices and how much you were running yourself into the ground? Like you just said, you were getting 4 hours sleep, and for anyone that's been following you on Instagram for a long time, you literally used to put up your day's itinerary, and it was, you're not even lying, you were getting like 3-4 hours sleep. You were waking up at 4 o'clock to start your day some mornings.
It's a strange one. I think looking from the outside into my life, it looks mental. Like, it looks, what an absolute lunatic.
Agreed.
And yeah, I look like a loon. But the people that would ask me, like, why are you doing it? And the reason I kind of could keep picking myself up, go back in, because I knew why I was doing it. Like, there was always, like, so for anyone that doesn't know, I used to work, I've already got a degree, so I got a degree in maths and stats. Went and worked in finance, hated every single second I was there. Was one of the worst industries in terms of your moral compass. And it just was so unfulfilling for me that I knew whatever I did, I had to do something where I was getting to help people. So knowing that it was going to be worth it at the end of the 3 years, it's only 3 years. It's only 3 years with reduced sleep. You can catch up on your sleep. It's going to be worth it. And I'm very grateful to be at the end of that 3 years of sleep deprivation. And like, I always knew why I was making myself suffer. There was always a reason behind it. It wasn't just because it's fun, because I can assure you it's not fun.
So you managed to balance your life. You've endured a lot of sacrifice. For what? What are the long-term plans? Firstly, within your sport. Secondly, within your career. So plans and goals, pretty much.
Oh, this one's so tough.
Where would you like
Basically,
to
I just
be
wanted to
within your
survive.
sport?
So for me, I've been lucky enough to compete for Scotland for the last 2 years. So I've been selected as part of the Celtic Nations Scotland team. I would hopefully be able to compete again if it goes ahead this year. So I'd like to stay with the Scotland team as much as possible in the next few years. Push up my totals. For me, I've been really fighting the last few years to qualify for British. For various reasons, I've just been a bit unlucky. When they introduced the new system last year, I was the first athlete declined in the under 59s category, and goal for this year was British. British was cancelled. So I just want to do the best that I can in terms of weightlifting and hopefully get to represent my country again sometime soon.
Have you had many
In
competitions
terms,
cancelled during quarantine?
yeah. So in April, it was meant to be my last year at British Students as well. So that got cancelled. I was meant to go home for Scottish Championships in May. That's been cancelled. British in June, cancelled. So pretty much the whole of my plan for competing at the start of 2020 went out the window. And I last competed, I think, maybe November. Um, and my coach banned me from doing any competitions for at least 3 to 6 months. And I was like, okay, I can hold out till April. And then they've all been cancelled. So it could be maybe a year before I can, which is a bit scary, but can only hope that I will have had many, many gains in that very, very long time.
So maybe coming out of retirement for functional fitness could be in the near future, as they have a competition once every weekend, 5 every weekend.
Well, I think that's probably what attracted me to fitness in the first place. I'm painfully competitive. Like, I'll put my hand up. I'm painfully competitive. So when I first found functional fitness, that was what drew me in. Is that you get to compete at any time, any day. You literally can be competing, even if it's just for yourself, and that in the first place. So yes, Craig, I will probably come out of my pseudo retirement soon.
Does Ed ever pest you to come out of retirement and like do partner competitions with him? Or is he happy having his thing and you doing your thing?
I don't think he's that fussed, really. I do a partner competition. I totally would do a partner competition. But he is a much, much better athlete than I am. Like 100%, back him all the way. He's a very, very talented athlete. And I wouldn't want to hold him back by not being able to run 800 meters, because let's be honest, it's not a strength of mine.
Could Ed possibly
yeah.
do a competition and not take it seriously? Or I know how good he is. Could he do it just for fun? Or would he get there and turn up and be like, right, Albie, this is it. We're going to win.
I don't know. I think I'd probably be worse than him. I think he'd be quite chilled and be like, yeah, let's do that. And I'm like, no, I'm in. I'm all in. So I think I would probably be worse. He's very chilled. So I don't know if that would be a good combination or an absolute disaster.
Long-term plans with your career. You said that you've finished uni doing physio. Would that mean that you then stop coaching and leave Shapesmiths, or would you try and combine the two and multitask and then bring back in the itinerary of your balanced lifestyle?
I mean, I'm in absolutely no rush to return to my 20-hour working days. Not at all. I mean, quite a unique position, really. So I've got my own programming business that I do a lot of coaching at the moment, more specifically for weightlifting, and I love what I do. I definitely do want to do physiotherapy as well, but I'm not sure I could go and work for somebody else, because I've been self-employed for 3 years now, 4 years, and I love being self-employed. As scary and as risky as it is, if I want to work at 5 in the morning, I can. If I don't want to work at 5 in the morning, I can. And it just gives me this freedom to be able to focus on what I actually want to do. So at the moment, what I'm actually doing is trying to find a physiotherapy mentor. So someone that has been in the game for a long time, that is really open and willing to share their knowledge, because I want to know everything. And I'd really, really like to get that kind of input from someone that's been doing it for a long time. So that's actually what I'm focusing on at the moment, is finding someone that I can learn from, that is going to allow me to take things forward.
And how's that working out for you, finding a mentor in this time? Pretty difficult, I guess.
I mean, all the physiotherapy clinics are pretty much shut, so it's not going so great right now. But
Non-existent.
yeah, I'm keen. We'll see. Um, Hopefully things will start to open up in the next few weeks. Lots of opportunities in terms of going into hospitals, working as like bank staff, or going into more MSK, so musculoskeletal physio, within like the NHS system. Lots of different options, probably too many options, but we'll just kind of see how the next few months play out.
Well, we've focused on your functional fitness career and what you've done in the past, and your weightlifting career, but we've not really gone too much into depth of. We know that functional fitness come first, and then you transitioned, and it was kind of all due to time. But can you tell us a bit more about how you come into starting CrossFit, and then a bit more how you moved into weightlifting?
Do you want the whole story? Because if we're going back into the depths of time, it all begins at the age 2.5.
What did you do growing up? Was there any sports that you stood out in?
Well, I'm not very tall, so quite a lot of sports that you do in school, it benefits you if you're quite tall. Most of the things that we did generally in school, like netball, swimming, running, they would have benefited me if I was a lot taller, but like I was very keen to take part. But for me, the main thing I've done since I was literally 2 years old was ballet. So I've been a dancer. Definitely have retired from that, to be clear.
How
I
long were you
danced.
dancing for?
So I danced, and like all the way through school, I was working with a company at home of aspiring professionals until I was 16. So I was set to go down the path of professional dance, and then I got injured. So age 16, I tore the labrum in my hip, so the cartilage that sits in the hip joint, and unfortunately for me, it got misdiagnosed. So this is kind of the roundabout long way of why I ended up becoming a physio. But it took until I was 21 to get a good physio to diagnose what was actually going on. I was kind of told it'll go away on its own. You just got tendonitis. But I kept dancing through it anyway. I just had taken it down to like more of a recreational level and picked it up when I went to uni. Mainly because I didn't really know what else to do. And throughout uni, I was competitive team dancer. If you are lucky, I will find some of the videos for you. They will probably be on the depths of YouTube. We competed across the UK, like teams of like 12 dancers. All very bring it on.
I was going to ask what style of dance you were doing.
So I was across 4 or 5 different teams. So ballet, jazz, contemporary, hip hop, but we're not going to talk about that. I've tried most things. I was very much an all-rounder. And then I had my hip surgery in my final year of my first degree. And through the rehab, so I was very lucky with the physio that I got. This is the one that found out what was happening. She was at the time the Scotland rugby physio. So if she's listening, hi Sandra. She rehabbed me through squats and deadlifts. So this is a skinny 50 kg, 5-foot girl that is now getting put through squats and deadlifts as rehab. At that time, so this is 2013. This is kind of revolutionary from like a physio perspective. It's just not done. It wasn't done at the time. And I remember going into like the performance gym at uni, and all these like big rowers and big rugby players just looking at me like, "Are you lost?" And it was just in my head. I'm thinking, I am absolutely terrified. None of these squat racks are the right height. I have no idea how to move them. But that's how I actually got into strength training before CrossFit. Rehabbed through strength training, which was really fun. Realised that it's kind of cool being strong.
Absolutely.
It is really cool. And I was just quite good at it, actually. The mobility I had from dancing meant that I didn't really have any mobility restrictions, which generally just makes squatting so much easier. It feels like you get to skip a level and just crack on. I then moved to London. So I graduated my first degree, was already squatting like a reasonable amount at this time. Moved to London, and then I had no friends, no family, and I was on my own. And it was kind of like, okay,
What
I've
age
come
was
from
this?
like, I was 21, I think, when I moved to London, 2014. I think I'm 21. I don't know, my maths is awful now. Um, and I was just going to like a regular gym, and someone at work approached me. His name's Ben. Hopefully he listens to this. Hi Ben. He approached me at the photocopier, and he's like, "I hear that you're the girl that squats." And it was almost like it become this like office urban legend. It's like you're the girl that squats, because it wasn't a done thing for like outside of normal sports. And I was like, yeah. He's like, you'd like CrossFit. And I was like, okay. And then I just went back to my desk, and then he just kept pestering me over and over. And eventually I went and did a session. But a few years before this, I'd actually heard of CrossFit years ago. So I think it was probably 2011. And I'd met a female personal trainer in Bristol. Um, and she just said, I think you'd really like it. Because I did a lot of her classes that she was doing. And then I looked at how expensive it was. And at the time, I was like, absolutely not. um, but then when he brought it up again a little bit later and said, just go see how you get on, absolutely loved it. I was hooked from day one.
And was this at the gym that you're coaching at now, or have you been part of many CrossFit gyms or affiliates, or what were CrossFit gyms or affiliates?
So my first official CrossFit gym was Sunbury. So I think it's changed names now, but it was Sunbury Performance CrossFit at the time. And Di was one of the head coaches at the time. Di Palmer. He now owns Slough, I think. And he was my first CrossFit coach. And he was so scary, but I just did whatever he told me to do. It was absolutely terrifying. But it was just such a nice environment to be in, and it just allowed me to make friends when I didn't really know anybody in London. And the people at work were generally a bit older than me, other than my friend that I was on the grad scheme with. Everyone else was kind of like quite settled, um, a little bit older, and obviously I'm just this random Scottish girl that's appeared.
Out of
So it was
nowhere,
really nice.
but she
Yeah,
squats.
literally. But she's that random girl that squats, but no one wants to talk about it. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I sort of fell into it. Um, and I was there for I think maybe a year and a half, and then I've been pretty much with the Shapesmith team. I think I moved there. What
I
year are we
was
now?
2020.
2016, I think.
I was
I
going to
think
say that
2016.
between being at Sunbury and Shapesmiths and you beginning your coaching journey, did much happen between then, or did you move to Shapesmiths and like a lot of CrossFit coaches, you were like, man, this coach has impacted my life so drastically. I want to do the same thing.
Um, so I changed jobs in the middle of all this. So I was at like a normal gym for a little while, just because I was trying to find the right CrossFit gym for me that was going to fit. So I was actually a member of Shapesmith first, which it's so long ago now, everyone's forgotten. But I was like back when like they hadn't painted the walls yet. I was still like one of the first people um, in Shapesmith as a member, and it was so amazing. And like I love Sunbury and I love the people at Sunbury and I thought they were great. But there was something about going through just the doors at Shapesmith when it was just Lee coaching all on his own. Um, I just loved it. Do you know when you just get a good vibe? It was
Yeah.
very much a this is for me, and then that was it.
So you've gone from Sunbury, you went to a conventional gym to Shapesmiths, you then started coaching at Shapesmiths. How long
Yeah.
until you become a weightlifter?
I'm trying to think of the timeline. So I always had a bit of a bias towards strength training. I liked it the most. It was fun. And I think part of me likes how data driven it is. Like, it's really obvious if you get better at strength training because your numbers go up or your capacity goes up. Whereas some days you wake up and like you just can't do a strict handstand press up. Like, for no good reason, you just can't. Whereas yesterday you could, today you can't. And I would find that really frustrating. So in terms of my actual training, when I was doing more functional fitness stuff, I would always have a bias towards weightlifting anyway. And I remember doing an in-house competition, one of the Shapesmith ones. We do them every 3 months, and it went like really surprisingly well. And the coach at the time was like, "Why don't you just do like a weightlifting competition? Like, why don't you just do it and see?" So I convinced my flatmate at the time to drive us to Plymouth from London, because that was the only competition that was that was local. I say local very loosely. That was anytime soon, because at that point in 2020, end of 2018, I think there wasn't a lot of, or maybe it was 2017, there wasn't a lot of competitions, whereas now they're like every few weeks. So I went and just did my first competition. My second competition, I actually qualified for the English Championships. So it happened very quickly. And then from there, I'd done like 3 competitions, because I went to English Champs at the start of, it must have been 2018, the start of 2018. I'd gone from no competitions to being at English Championships in the space of 3 months, and it was mental. I did not feel like I'd earned it at all. I'd kind of just arrived.
Did you notice that you were transitioning from CrossFit to weightlifting? Because it sounds like it was just very seamless, that you did this weightlifting meet and then you were good at it and then you enjoyed strength, so it just kind of made sense.
So throughout all of that, I was still doing all my CrossFit stuff. So I was still doing all my horrible aerobic capacity stuff. I was still running every week. But it meant that I was having to train 2 or 3, sometimes 3 times a day to fit it all in, just to make sure I actually got enough recovery, which I definitely didn't get. And it was more, the more that I tried to be better at weightlifting, the more time it was taking. And then it was, okay, so what's got to give? I'm not willing to give up the amount of effort I'm putting into weightlifting, so I'm definitely keen to take out the extra run. And then it almost became like not a transition, as in I didn't wake up one day and just stop doing CrossFit. It was, I'm running out of hours in the day, and I'm not willing to give up the weightlifting side of things. And for me, it got to the point where it was, what are you going to be most grateful for in 6 months' time if you keep trying to be like good at everything? Are you going to be annoyed that you didn't focus on this and give it like a chance? Which is why the kind of like retirement joke came about, and I always was very much like, when I have more time, I'll come back to it. Like, I'm not done yet. I'll come back. And it was like, when I retire from weightlifting, I'll come back. And it's still kind of that, I want to still give my full commitment to weightlifting, but it's been so fun doing more workouts. It's just fun to do different stuff.
Is there an end date to your weightlifting career as such, or is it if you don't make this Scottish team, or is it until you stop enjoying it as much as you are now?
For me, I think it will purely be when it stops being fun, because I don't want to put, because I know quite a lot of people actually put numbers on, oh, when I hit this snatch, I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
I mean, if I say, oh, when I hit 100 snatch, I'll retire. If I hit 100 kilogram snatch, the last thing I want to be doing is retiring. So I don't want to put any numbers on it, because it changes the focus and it gives it an end point. But as long as I still love it, I am very happy to keep going. And I love coaching it as well, and seeing other people have those like light bulb moments when it all comes together. It's so rewarding. So I think the chance of me retiring from weightlifting as an athlete, or I don't really know. There's a cool bunch of masters out there, so might transition into the masters scene.
Possibly a difficult question that you don't have to answer. You're more than welcome to say no comment. Do you prefer coaching weightlifting or CrossFit?
Oh, definitely prefer coaching weightlifting. Definitely. I do love coaching the functional fitness side of things, but my passion is definitely on the weightlifting side for sure. And the research and the reading I do around coaching tends to bias towards that. I've still been coaching all the way through, so we've been really lucky with the classes that we've been able to provide. Like, I've been coaching 4 or 5 days a week anyway, and I work with, I think, 14 athletes at the moment individually anyway. So getting to see how they've progressed through lockdown has been amazing. Like, shout out to all of them. Like, fair play. Like, lockdown is hard, and to be able to make progress in any way when you're trying to balance what on earth is happening in the world right now, like, shout out, guys. You have absolutely smashed it. So anyone that is doing like the horrible, boring stuff on a daily basis on the promise of it paying off later, like, fair play.
If there are people listening to this podcast that do want to get more into weightlifting or know more about you and possibly potentially be programmed by yourself, where can they find more information on that?
So you can either just message me on Instagram. It's got my email linked onto there as well. Just ask me for information. Like, I'm very, very willing to have a chat with anybody. If you'd rather have a phone call and we can chat through what you think would be best for you, that's not a problem at all. Like, I'm very open to chat to anybody, to help as many people as I possibly can. And if you're struggling with an injury as well and you're worried about training around that, ask out there that have knowledge to be able to help you, especially when it comes to injury. Like, please do get in touch. Like, from the bottom of my heart, I want you to be able to keep training.
Well, what we will do is put all your social media, so your Instagram bio and everything, your Instagram handle, in the show notes. That'll be on Spotify, YouTube, so on and so forth. So if people do want to message you directly, we're making it as easy as possible to do so.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up the podcast, because we've taken an hour and 5 minutes of your day away, is there anything that you would like to add to the podcast that we may have not touched upon? Because no doubt we will get you on in the future to talk again, being a RocketPWR athlete, and of course we can show people the journey from weightlifting back to functional fitness.
You can't force me to go backwards, Craig. It's only forwards, and that can include RocketPWR functional fitness.
I will never force you to do anything that you don't want to do. We support you in every venture that you take.
You do, and
honestly, that's from the bottom of my heart. We do. That's not being sarcastic.
Oh, I love you and Emily.
Thank you for taking your time with us today. And as I just said, we will get you onto the podcast in the future and see where you're at with everything after lockdown.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for your time.